swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat in the witness chair. Yes, you may. Mr. Smestad.
Will you state your name and spell your last name, please?
My name is Victor Froloff. First name Victor, V-I-C-T-O-R, last name F-R-O-L-O-F-F.
And what's your occupation?
I'm an assistant medical examiner for Ramsey County.
And generally, what
Hold
are your...
on. Is there a cell phone? I hear music.
Yes, sorry.
Please turn.
I had it off and it's, for some reason it's playing.
All right. Maybe you should step out. All right, you got it. Again, I am amazed that we've gotten this far in the trial without a cell phone. So I compliment you all. But please make sure all devices are turned off. They can be a distraction to the attorneys and the witnesses during their important work. Mr. Smestad.
Dr. Froloff, what are your general duties as a medical examiner?
We have multiple duties. I was hired by Dr. Mills to perform autopsy. Autopsy is examination of the dead bodies. Of course, we have to sign the death certificates. When physician refused to sign, we approve all cremations in the state of Minnesota. And of course, I have to do autopsy. I have to express my opinion about cause and manner of the death. And sometimes I have to give my opinion about cause and manner of the death in the court.
Are you occasionally asked by St. Croix County to complete autopsies for deaths that occur in St. Croix County?
Yes, St. Croix County, it's our neighbors across the river, so they usually send cases, complicated cases to us.
How long have you been a medical examiner?
My official position, assistant medical examiner, I'm employed in this position for 19 years.
I can approach your honor.
Yes.
Doctor, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 61. Recognize that document?
Yes, Exhibit 61, it's a hard copy of my CV.
By CV, you mean curriculum vitae?
That's correct.
Does it set forth your credentials, training, that type of thing?
Yes,
Does it also set forth teaching jobs you've had and publications that you've contributed to or wrote yourself?
yes.
Can you please just summarize your education?
I'm a physician for like 39 years. I graduated medical school. I did 1 year of internship in internal medicine. I practiced emergency medicine for many years. And 30 years ago, I immigrated to the United States. Basically, I have to start all over. So I passed all my tests. I decided I'd like to do forensic pathology. In order to do forensic pathology, you need to do some specialized training. I graduated from University of Minnesota in pathology, and I did 2 fellowships in Milwaukee, so I trained in Wisconsin. So it's Medical College of Wisconsin and Milwaukee County Medical Examiner Office, and I get back to Minnesota.
Have you been working at the Ramsey County Medical Examiner's Office? You said 19 years. Has that been continuously with Ramsey County?
Yeah, I don't work for Ramsey County. I work for Dr. Mills, who's a Ramsey County medical examiner. She hired me to perform autopsy, but yes, continuously for 19 years, yes.
You have a general idea of how many autopsies you performed at that time?
I don't count autopsies anymore. It's over 4,000 autopsies, and now it's approximately rate 300 autopsies per year.
Can you tell the jury what the field of pathology entails? What's all involved with it?
Pathology, it's a branch of the medicine study, basically nature of the disease, such as cancer, for example.
And what's forensic pathology?
Forensic pathology and forensic pathologists use medical knowledge in legal cases, unusual death, unusual circumstance, and violent death.
And are you licensed to practice medicine?
I have full 2 and unrestricted licenses for state of Minnesota and state of Wisconsin.
And obviously he's performing autopsies on folks that have been killed. That's part of your duties?
Yes, we perform, we involve an investigation, perform an autopsy in a homicidal death.
For those who might not know, can you describe what an autopsy is?
Autopsy, it's a complex procedure. First of all, we like to know what happened with the body. Second, I perform external examination. At the time of the external examination, we collect trace evidence, DNA, sexual assault kit, some other, specimens if I have to. Then I perform internal examination of the body. It's called evisceration. Basically, we open body, we look for damage, we look for any type of injuries, we look for diseases. At the same time, I'm taking photographs. And another large part of the autopsy, it's performing toxicology. At the time of the examination, we collect body fluids, such as blood, bile. We collect urine if it's available. We collect fluid from eyes, called vitreous humor. And I collect tissue samples for toxicology, such as liver.
Did you perform an autopsy on Isaac Schuman back in 2022?
I performed autopsy on Isaac Schuman on July 31st, 2022. You're correct, yes.
And do you prepare reports regarding, or did you prepare reports regarding the autopsy that you completed of Isaac Schuman?
Yes, we usually issue like provisional reports, like my initial diagnosis, initial thinking, without toxicology, it's the same day. And when I'm done with full investigation and toxicology, I sign a final autopsy report.
I can approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
We can have a minute.
They're all muted.
Marked as exhibit number 60. You recognize that document?
Yes, Exhibit 60, it's again hard copy of my provisional report.
Is that the report you do before the toxicology has come back?
That is correct.
I'll show you what's been marked as exhibit 17. I'll ask if you recognize that.
Exhibit 17, it's again a hard copy of my final autopsy protocol.
Can I ask you some questions about those documents, Doctor? When you did the autopsy of Isaac Schuman, did you follow your normal autopsy protocol that you described earlier?
Yes, we follow, some general rules, yes.
Did you complete an external examination of his body?
Yes,
What findings did you make on the external examination of his body?
Before I start external examination of the body, I just need to tell you that I got body from the hospital. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. He had a medical, we call artifacts. He had a tube inside of his oral cavity just helping to breathe. He had 2 IV lines, intravascular access, but it was inserted into his bones. And he had a multiple surgical packing material saturated with the blood, and I observed body on my table. There was some blood present on his body, and I observed sharp wounds injury to his left chest.
Did you take photographs during your external examination of Isaac's body?
Yes, I did attempt to take, many photographs.
Did you complete an internal examination of Isaac's body?
Yes,
And is that part of the usual autopsy procedure?
yes, you're correct.
Can you summarize the results of your internal examination of Isaac's body?
Sure. As I said, I observed, most important, I observed sharp wound injury to his left chest. Later, I classified this wound as a stab wound. Stab wound, basically it's a sharp wound injury. Stab wound when the depth of the wound exceeds the length of the wound on the skin. So it was stab wound to the left chest. The stab wound penetrated to his left chest cavity. He had a damage, I call it sharp wound injury to his 5th and 6th ribs on the left chest cavity. Then wound kind of continues and go to the left lung. I was able to identify sharp wound injury to the lower lobe of the left lung. He had a blood in his left chest cavity. I recovered 200 cubic centimeters. It's approximately a glass of the blood in his left chest cavity. And he had damage, sharp wound injury to his pericardium. Pericardium, it's a coverage, kind of like sac around his heart. And he had a sharp wound injury to the apex of the heart. Apex, it's a pointy part of the heart, like he had a damage, sharp wound injury to the left ventricle of the heart. And he had a condition, and I identified this condition on the X-ray I performed before autopsy. He had a condition called pneumothorax. Pneumothorax is present of the air in the chest cavity. So 2 conditions, pneumothorax, air, and hemothorax present on the blood. And his organs, midline organs, was kind of shifted to the right. It's called deviation to the right. It's because it's collection of the air in the left chest cavity.
I can approach again, Your Honor.
Yes, you may.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 24, and I'll ask if you recognize that document, or I guess that group of documents.
Yes, Exhibit 24, it's hard copy for some of my images I took at the time of the examination.
Those are the photographs you took during your examination of Isaac Schuman.
Some of them, yes.
All right, and I want to go through this page by page.
Yes, you may.
Dr. Froloss, I'm going to go through each of the 12 photos that are in Exhibit 24. Page 1, what is that a photo of?
I believe it's page 1. It's a hard copy of the swim trunk or swimsuit, which I took from the body.
Was Isaac Schuman wearing anything else other than the swim trunks when you received his body?
No.
Page 2, can you tell us what that is?
Page 2, that's image of the body taken from the left side. So this gentleman is on my table. I took these photographs. He covered by medical, just basically hospital type sheath. His hands covered by brown bags.
Why are his hands covered, if you know?
This is part of the requirement. In cases for suspicious cases, we ask law enforcement or medical personnel cover hands with bag to protect trace evidence, because we have to collect trace evidence at the time of the autopsy. So it's part of the standard procedure.
All right, page 3, what does that show?
I hope we're on the same page. I believe this is, when I took a bag from his hands, this is image of the wrist, left wrist, and I just document that he had it's my name tag, and it's hospital number. He was ID by hospital number, and he had a golden collar chain or bracelet on his left wrist.
When his body came to you, did he have that bracelet on?
Yes, actually, I recovered later. It was because his hands were a bag, but he had a bracelet, yes.
All right, page 4, can you tell us what that is?
Page 4, I believe this is image of the back of his right hand.
Page 5,
Page 5, that's again, it's a photograph of the front of his right hand.
page 6,
Page 6, it's a photograph of the front of his right hand. I just trying to take a picture on the different angle to see, how it turns.
all right, and then page 7, can you tell us what that is?
Page 7, it's a hard copy of the image of his left hand, back of his left hand.
And then page 8,
Page 8, it's again image of the front of his left hand.
page 9, can you tell us what that is?
Page 9. On the page 9, when we collect trace evidence, again, I wash a body and photograph body again. This is picture of the front of his body, anterior chest. We call it anterior chest, but basically front of the body. And in his left chest, you can see a blick. It's meaning running at the angle. Sharp was injury. In this case, it's a stab wound to the left chest. Under this wound, he had a small, I had a hard time to subclassify tiny kind of like abrasion. I described in the final report that this is abrasion. It's very superficial injuries. And this sharp was injury, it's fairly large. I measure it's 10 centimeters. It's approximately 3.9 inches in length.
The next page, can you tell us what that is?
Next page, that's a close-up of his stab wound to the left chest. It's located below the left nipple. And again, just close up. I just want to show jury, defense attorney, prosecutor, that this is indeed sharp was injury, and both ends of the wound is sharp. That could be important in some cases to describe exact, details of the stab wound.
On the next page, is that from your internal examination of Isaac's body?
Next page, yes, that's a image of the left chest. When I removed his skin from the left chest, I observed that he had a sharp force injury to 2 ribs. So 2 ribs was completely kind of like transected. So weapon went through his rib cage. Just want to show you that that's damage of the 2 ribs.
I make sure I understand you, Dr. Froloss. When you say that his ribs were transected, what do you mean by that?
It's a sharp force injury to the ribs.
And what was the damage to the ribs?
It's completely cut, well, I can say cut off.
How many ribs were completely cut?
2.
All right, on the next page, if you can tell us what that is.
Next page, it's again a hard copy of the image of the heart. I mentioned to you when I examined his body, I observed that he had a sharp force injury to the apex of the heart. It's like pointy part of the heart. So I measure it's 5 centimeters. It's approximately 2 inches in length.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask for permission to publish the photos to the jury. It's my intention just to give the hard copies to the jurors rather than putting anything on the screen.
Mr. Nelson, any objection to Exhibit 24?
Yes, as we discussed, but I understand Your Honor's ruling.
Yes, I've overruled the objection. We can talk more later. Members of the jury, Mr. Smestad is going to hand you the paper photographs from Dr. Froloff's examination. The photographs are evidence. Consider it as much as your sensibilities allow. It may be difficult to look at, so if you need to avert your eyes or set it aside, you may do so, but it is evidence, and I ask that you consider it as much as you are able to. Please share the photos.
Thank you, Your Honor. Put them back in the order they were in. It's clear.
Be a good idea to have them stapled so they don't become shuffled or paginate them.
Dr. Froloff, were any laboratory tests performed as part of the autopsy process?
Yes, I performed full toxicology on this gentleman.
And what were the results of the toxicology that was done for Isaac Schuman?
He was positive for ethanol and BAC, blood alcohol concentration. It's 0.219.
Did he have any other substances in his blood?
No, there is no other substances or drugs.
In your field, forensic pathology, what does the term cause of death refer to?
We have to express opinion about causes of death. Basically, it's how people die. In the case of, for example, people die from heart attack. That's cause of the death.
And what does the term manner of death mean in your field?
In matter of the death, it's how cause of the death came to be. And in the case of the heart attack, that's going to be natural death.
Based on the autopsy you performed of Isaac Schuman, were you able to determine a cause of death?
Yes.
And what was this cause of death?
In my opinion, cause of the death, it's stab wound to the left chest.
And based on the autopsy you performed of Isaac's body, were you able to determine a manner of death?
Yes.
And what was that conclusion?
In my opinion, manner of the death, in this case, it's a homicide.
Your Honor, I don't have any other questions for the doctor. I'm going to move, oh, pardon me. As part of your examination of Isaac, did you measure his height and weight?
Yes, we measure length of the body, not height, but length of the body and weight, yes.
What was the length of the body and the weight for Isaac Schuman?
He was weighted 134 pounds.
Do you remember how tall he was, how long he was?
And again, we measure length of the body, it's a little bit different than height, 6.1.
And the evidence that you gathered from Mr. Schuman, was that turned over to the sheriff's office?
I believe, evidence, and we collect, the trace evidence in this case was released to, I believe, on the 2nd of August to sheriff's office, yes.
Did you, as part of your examination of Isaac, take any DNA samples?
Again, in every case, we collect, in this case, we collect sexual assault kit, but basically we collect hair, buccal swabs inside of the oral cavity called buccal swabs, suitable for DNA, yes.
Were those items also turned over to the sheriff's department?
I believe so, yes.
And getting back to the injury to Isaac's chest, you measure how deep that injury is?
Yes, I measure depth of the wound, it's 11 centimeters, it's approximately 4.3 inches.
I don't have any other questions, Your Honor. I'm going to move for admission of Exhibit 24, 61. The two on the bench here, if I can approach.
24 is already received. Any objection to 61? I think that's the preliminary report.
Objection to the CV.
17 and 60.
Oh, excuse me, 61 was the CV. That's received. What was the other exhibit?
60 is the provisional report, no objection. 17 is the final report, no objection.
Both received.
Thank you.
Mr. Nelson.
You're a medical examiner?
Good morning, Counselor. I'm not a medical examiner, official position, assistant medical examiner.
In general, your role is you're a medical examiner. I understand you have a title and a position, but your role is you're an ME, right?
I'm an assistant medical examiner, yes, for Ramsey County. That's official position.
Okay. And you're here to tell us essentially two things. One is that Isaac Schuman's deceased, right?
He was.
Agree with that?
Yes, I agree. He was deceased before I started autopsy, yes.
And another, essentially what you're here to say is how he died, correct?
Yes,
As you said, you want to know what happened, correct?
we like to know what happened, yes.
And as part of that, you do an autopsy, you examine the body, correct?
Yes,
Because sometimes that helps to figure out what happened, correct?
you're correct, yes.
You would agree that it's unusual in your field to have a video of what happened, agreed?
Well, lately we have more and more videos because everything on cameras. But yes, sometimes videos taken at the time of the incident, yes.
And obviously, you would agree that a video is helpful for all of us to determine what happened, right?
Again, my job to determine cause and matters of death, express my opinion, and videos sometimes important, yes.
Did you see the video in this case?
I did not observe any videos.
Have you ever observed any photos or frames from that video?
I prefer not to. I was not offered, but I was told by prosecution that video available, but I denied. I didn't observe video.
Okay. And again, just to summarize, your opinion is he died due to a penetrating stab wound to his left chest, correct?
In the final report, I said exsanguination, basically bleeding to the death, to the stab wound to the left chest. You're correct.
Medical examiners, even assistant medical examiners, is there a board certification process for that position?
It's It depends on which field, yes.
Okay. In your field, there's a board certification process, sir?
Yes.
Are you board certified?
I'm a diplomat of the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigators.
Are you board certified as a medical examiner?
There is no board certification for medical examiners, board certification for forensic pathology.
You talked about manner of death and cause of death, is that right?
Yes,
And I think, just so we know, again, just cause of death is stab wound to the left chest, in simple terms, correct?
you are correct, yes.
And then the manner is, as you said, how that cause came to be, agreed?
Yes.
And that's a medical term, correct?
It's a forensic term, yes.
A forensic medical term, correct?
Sure.
It's not a legal term, correct?
It's not a legal term, no.
And the cause of death, there are essentially, you have 4 options, 5 options?
No, for manner of the death, we have.
Yes,
For
I
cause of
apologize.
death, it's indefinitive. For manner of the death, we have limited options, yes.
Absolutely. So manner of death, there's limited options, only 5?
We can choose from the natural death, accidental death, suicidal death, homicidal death. And if I cannot determine, I can say it is undetermined death. You're correct.
Okay. So there is no determination that you can make, that you're qualified to do, as to whether or not the homicide occurred as a result of self-defense. Agreed?
Oh, I never testified that it's self-defense or as an issue. Homicide, basically, from forensic point of view, it's meaning life taken by another person.
Sure. And again, that's outside of your field, whether it's self-defense. Agreed?
Yes, I never testified about self-defense, yes.
Okay. In this situation, you examined Isaac Schuman's body, and part of that was the toxicology. Is that right?
Yes,
And you determined that his blood alcohol concentration was 0.219. Agreed?
it's not me, it's a lab.
A lab that you rely on in your work, correct?
Yes,
So based upon your relying on that lab, you agree his blood alcohol concentration was 0.219.
that is correct.
And you're aware that the legal limit for adults permitted to drink alcohol is 0.08, correct?
In the state of Wisconsin, driving legal limit, it's 0.08. You're correct.
So this would be over 2.5 times the legal limit, correct?
Yes,
All right. Now, you talked about the wound and you described that. Agreed?
yes,
The manner in which somebody would receive a stab wound is a dynamic process. You agree?
you're correct, yes.
There would be, you're not here to tell anybody about the amount of force that was used to cause that wound. Agreed?
It's usually hard to determine force apply in the cases like that, yes.
And part of the reason that it's hard to determine is because the process is so dynamic, correct?
Oh, it's not just dynamic, it's nature of the weapon and so on and so on.
And at least part of it, and I understand there might be more complications, part of it is that it might be one object going into another object. It might be 2 objects moving towards each other, correct? Those are at least 2 of the possible dynamics involved.
If you mean objects, it's humans, right?
Correct, and I
People-
apologize.
people.
A person
And person.
and the knife. You're absolutely right. I apologize. You agree?
It's dynamic process, yes.
And so part of that, to try to measure, if one was to try to think about that force, you'd have to know whether the person who's receiving that wound, in what direction they're moving, correct?
It's so many things you need to
Absolutely.
consider, yes.
You would agree, though, if the person receiving the wound is moving towards the knife, that's going to impact how the injury occurs. Agreed?
Yes,
If the person receiving the wound is reaching out, that's going to impact the wound that is received.
I can't speculate because, it's possibility, but again, I'm here to express opinion about cause and matter of the death. And I never, observed this incident. Sure, but again, it's really hard to tell what happened because I don't know what happened exactly.
I understand, but you were here to say a certain depth of the wound, and that was something that you pointed out to the jury, correct?
Depth of the wound, it's easy to measure, and
Absolutely.
it's objective kind of things.
Sure. So you would agree, though, it's fair for me to ask you questions about how it may have came to be that the wound became that deep? That's a fair question, you agree?
Sure.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Are you fine with that?
Until, some points, yes.
Yeah. And so that may have occurred if a body is moving towards that knife, that's going to impact the depth of the wound. Agreed?
Yes.
If a 6'1", 130-pound, 34 person is moving towards into that knife, that might make the knife go deeper, correct?
It's again, I can't predict how deep exactly, but it's possibility, yes.
Sure. And certainly if that person, 6'1", 134 pounds, is falling forward, so all their weight is going forward onto that knife, that's going to impact the force as well, correct?
That's a possibility, yes.
And certainly if the person who's holding the knife is falling backwards, that might impact the force involved to the wound, correct?
My guess, so it's possibility, yes.
And if the person with holding the knife who's falling backward, if they only reach out a small amount, that's going to impact the force that causes the depth of the wound, correct?
As I said, it's so many variables, I can't speculate. It's, I don't know. I'm in pathology again. I have to express opinion on the cause and manner of the death, and this is just like what potential could happen if I don't have a straight answer.
Correct. And part of what you do in medicine is sometimes you come up with hypotheses, right?
I don't come with with hypothesis. It's just like I can official like statement. Like depth of the wound could be, like deeper than length of the blade, or shorter, or it's going to be equal. These are questions I can't answer. But what's potential happen at the time of the incident? It's endless possibilities. I don't know.
And you agree that the possibilities that I talked with you about, those are reasonable possibilities that if someone were to try to consider the force, should be considered. Agreed?
Sure.
Those are the only questions I have.
Mr. Smestad?
Nothing further.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Froloss. You may step down.
Am I excused, Your Honor?
You are excused. Yes.
Thank you.
How's everyone doing? Anybody need a short recess? All looks okay?
Judge, I'd suggest a break now. Sorry.
The next witness, I think, will be lengthy, so it might be a good idea to take up.
Okay.